Okay. Before you get into that, I want us to, still dwell on the aftermath of your resignation.
Yes.
How was life at that time? Because I want young people to be able to learn from this. And how were you able to manage that phase? The vacuum you had at that time where you were doing nothing. What was your experience? How were you?
No, it didn't take long for me to join my friend.
Okay.
I told you he paid my rent, and then immediately he asked me to join him. He was giving me allowances. I was selling fish where I could sell fish, and at least I had money to maintain myself. But my first revolt against the new thing I was doing was the fact of coming back home late in the night with a lot of naira notes, smelling fish, and and my body smelling and every kind of thing. So I revolted against that. I didn't like it, and then now onto the issue of being duped and all of that. So he just said immediately that I should go out. So I contacted Bayo Nonuga, and three of our colleagues, Kuya Jibadi Napolo Jomi and Shekendi, and then be absorbed by the Guardian, African Guardian.
Okay.
Those guys were already engaged. Barry was not engaged. I was already engaged in doing something else. So we then started meeting and looking at the possibility of. It was a time the independent newspapers in England just come up and they were making waves, and then they wrote a book on how the paper was made or built, and I got a copy of that book and I started reading. And we wanted to then pattern whatever newspaper or the magazine after the independence of London. So that was it. We then tap on another friend of ours, an ex-friend, who was an accountant, to help us put together a business plan. Yeah. So you had asked me about how we come about guerrilla journalism. So that was the road to guerrilla journalism. Gradually, we were inching towards it without planning, without
anticipating what could be the consequence.
Yes.
But are you bothered as a veteran journalist?
Yes.
You've carved a niche for yourself in this area. Are you bothered that the crop of journalists we have now might not take interest in that because of the challenges and the risk involved?
I've given a lot of thought to this, and I've even done a write-up. Every phase of Nigerian history, I've had journalists standing up to be counted. If you look at the struggle against the colonial power, you find about Macaulay, you find Nnamdi Azikiwe, you find Chief Babafemi Ojudu, you find Anthony Enao, and several others, journalists, writers, editors, publishers, who rose up against the colonial masters, and they were able to force the colonial masters out of Nigeria, and they took power, and they become people in government, and that led us to the First Republic. When we had First Republic, and there were crises, and the military took over, that crisis led to the Civil War. Journalists also got involved heavily in assuring that Nigeria remained one. And a lot of journalists most of the journalists were on the side of the federal government of Nigeria. Some journalists were on the side of the Biafra, but they collaborated heavily with the military at that time to ensure that Nigeria did not break up. So after that, then there was also the clamor for the military to go back to the barracks. Some journalists also championed that, and they fought vehemently. Many also got imprisoned. You've probably heard about the Abakiri case, when a young journalist, who wrote something critical about government in Rivers, had his head shaved with broken bottle by a young military officer who was a perpetrator of Rivers at that time. So journalists have always been there, and then our own wave came, which was that there was a lot of misgovernance. by the military, oppression of the people, corruption and everything. And we then began to champion the rights of the people, the return to civil rule and all of that. We got badgered for it, arrested, sent on exile, killed, our municipalities raided and all of that. So that was another phase. And of course, in 1999, the military gave up power. And a phase ought to have followed, which is the phase whereby there will be journalists who will now, be champion development and do things that will make our democracy endure. This is where we now find journalists like the succeeding journalists, I think pay more attention to their own personal survival. I want to be rich, I want to make money, I want to build a house, I want to buy a car, I want to send my children to very good schools. Those became their concerns. And that was why we are where we are today. There's nobody to then work assiduously for the next will, which is you do not need to practice guerrilla journalism in a democracy, but you need to be very critical. You need to do a lot of investigative work. You need to sharpen your instinct, to bring out those things that does not occur well, for the survival of that democracy. But we have not been able to find anybody or a group of who could do that. So I would, so having said that, I'm very critical of the present day journalists. I think they have, largely, with the exception of a few, betrayed their calling.
What do you think has led to that? Could it be survival instinct?
Survival instinct is
the
there.
Environment, or what could that be?
Survival instinct is there. Then there is a not too good education that could have prepared them for the task ahead of them. The universities, from the moment Babangida introduced social adjustment program, the best of the lecturers left Nigeria to go and practice their trade abroad. Those who were left, and their products were not up to par, and that's what has led us to where we are today. So, if you are not properly grounded in philosophy, in economics, in the humanities, and you just come out to become a journalist, you just look at it as a meal ticket. And then there are some elements too who came and caused the eruption, who employ journalists to work in their organization, and they will not pay salaries, and they will tell them, you have your ID card, that's your meal ticket, go on. So you then go out on the street and do all kinds of funny things with your ID card, and never caring about principle, never caring about ethics, never caring about the country. You are thinking about only yourself. Meanwhile, the person who employs you also think about only himself and his businesses. So there was a lacuna or a difference between our generation and the new generation. There are things, for example, I would never do. If I'm being tempted to do those things, I will ask myself, what will Shoyinka feel about me if I do this kind of thing? What will Bekora Zonkuti feel about me? What will Fela Anikulapo feel about? What will Akabasharon feel about me? What will several others who have stood up for Nigeria at critical times, think about me? But today nobody cares about anything. They just do whatever they like. It's a shabamu kind of generation. The Husetos is similar to the area boy on the street. Just give it to me. Just give me. That's the kind of generation. That we left the profession for. It's unfortunate that it is so, but what can we do? We hope that another way will come one day to give their life to true journalism, to give their life to let principle guide their operations and ethics as well. Yeah, I've seen situations whereby people give information to journalists, go and send the information to the subject of the information. People will call black white, and they'll call white red. They don't care. I give a story of my experience in the Senate when I saw a lot of things occurring around me, and journalists are just ignoring those things. And I I wasn't comfortable as a journalist. So why are these guys not reporting these things?
These
I'm
are
just like,
potential stories.
yeah, these are potential stories that could help this democracy. And I call a few of them to my office and I say, look, gentlemen, come on, yeah, pick up these things. It will help us or whatever. And they left the meeting to go and tell the leadership, And
Wow.
a friend of mine called me one day to tell me, if you continue this one, you get yourself killed.
Mm.
Those you had a meeting with told us that this is what you said. From that moment on, I stopped relating with them. If it was when I was practicing and I had a source at the National Assembly, I would become a star.
Mm.
I would just, it will be pumping me with information. I will be pumping my media office with it too. The papers will sell. It will be, the politicians will be more careful what they do, and that will help the nation and help everybody. But no longer so.
Let's talk about IBB now.
Yes.
He recently unveiled his book, his memoir, where the journey to service,
Right.
the journey of service. Did you feel like every other Nigeria, the way they are feeling that IBB had to apologize, for what happened, the annulment of June 12th,
Yes.
32 years after?
After.
What's your take on this?
Yes,
I'm sure you read the book as well.
I've read the book. I've read the book, as I've said, at other fora. I think IBB, is a victim of a tortured mind. He's done quite a lot of things, and all those things kept haunting him on a daily basis. And he thinks that he has to do something to relieve himself of that anguish. And I think that's why I wrote that book. And on 2 occasions I met him, and on those 2 occasions he affirmed his resolve not to write his autobiography. But on one occasion, I then said, okay, if you are not going to write, we are going to write. He said, and that will be your book, not my book. So I was shocked and surprised when I now was told that he was going to present a book, that kind of thing. If you look at it, try to blame everyone for, for what happened under his watch and all those kind of things. But he has written it. People are, giving a lie to some of the things he said, but that's, at least, it will be psychologically relieved that at least he has said something.
A lot of Nigerians were also outraged that the crop of people were affected by the annulment,
Yes.
where the set of people who attended,
Yeah.
the launching of that book. Are you bothered that this might not be or give the right justice to this kind of action? And then are you expecting that a kind of reconciliation should happen or something
He
should be
was
done?
offered, Babangida was offered that opportunity for reconciliation in 1999 when Obasanjo came in and set up the Oputa panel that was fashioned after the Truth Commission in South Africa. He refused to come. He actually instructed a lawyer to go to court and, take an injunction against his being subpoenaed to come and appear before that commission. So he was not interested in saying the truth at that time. So why now? Several years after that, most of the people he now allegedly were responsible for those mistakes have died, and they could not come and challenge him. So it's you can see what that is. Yeah.
But do you feel as one of the supporter
Yes.
of democracy, do you think the June 12th saga has been rested and the right justice has been served with the turnout of events now?
No justice has been served.
And are you not bothered?
I'm bothered because the possibility of that happening again is there. If an offense is committed and somebody is not punished for committing that offense, the possibility of another set of people committing the same offense in the future is there. So that's the only thing that gives me a bother. So I think people still ought to have been made to pay for it one way or the other. If not by sentencing and taking to jail, by having a roll call or a register of indignity, and having their name put in that register. That's I know that the matter of annulment is complex itself. There are a lot of plots within plots on that matter, which I'm privy to. But a leader ought to have stood firm and said, no, this must not happen under my watch. I believe that Babangida himself was not willing to give. He kept playing games, register political parties, people come out and say, okay, there was violence, cancel the election, another set of people ban some people, another set of people come in. And I think that was what happened till he got his friend, MK Wabela, and another friend, Bashir Tova, to come and contest. With the intent that, first of all, when he called them to say, go and back off, they will back off. Or if they then go into the election, there will be violence and crisis that will make him cancel. All of those failed. We went to the election, it was peaceful, and everybody, voted, and everything went well. And then began the problem. He didn't know what to do again. And there was an Abacha who seers have told that he will one day become president. And there was another General Guzo, who also have been told that he was going to be military president. They were waiting in the wings. So if Babangida now decide to hand over to Abiola, they will be angry because they were all privy to all this more about this thing. And you will recall that Abacha had saved Babangida at 1 or 2 times when there was going to be a very bloody coup. So there was a strong pressure on him, beyond his own authority to go, to want to, to for him to stay while they are preparing on how to take him out and assume the position that Marabata has told them that they are going to assume. So when he could no longer control it, he had to step aside. He was afraid, he was fearful. I remember the last press conference he had, he was jittery, you could see panic. He stood up, the patio, addressed journalists, and he was shaking. It was like someone who was under the other influence. Oga, calling journalists Oga when they were asking him questions. He was nervous, So a day after, he had to pack his thing and return to Mina. And then, as a stopgap, Abasanjo and Co assisted him in putting together, an interim government led by Chineke, while Abacha was plotting around to remove. And, Abacha now was in touch with civil society organizations and media chiefs in Lagos, using DIA to appeal to them, please. Some of us are sympathetic towards Abiola. We are democratic generals. We will take away this ING. We will clean up the army. All of the Abiola friends will be eliminated, and therefore, after 3 months, we will. And the civil society bought into that. The media bought into that. When Abacha now took over, everybody started waiting, for him to hand over to Abiola until he now began to show his fangs. Even to Dia himself, to Abubakar Umar and every other person who assisted him, who had believed the lie that he was going to hand over after 3 months.
Interesting.
And that then took us to a full-blown dictatorship, the victim of which I and others were.